To get started on this project, you should have downloaded the interactive form folder from the Canvas page. Inside of this folder, I'm giving you a variety of different things. The first part of this project is recreating an interactive PDF form and building it in InDesign. If you look at the form info, here's what I'm giving to you. First off, there's a RTF file that has all of the text data that you're going to need to copy and paste into this form. Also, I'm giving you an example of what the form could look like. Now, your design does not have to look exactly like this. If anything, you can update the colors, the placement. Certainly there's certain little interactive parts that can be updated as well. But do pay attention to what I'm trying to get you to collect information for. There are places for text boxes, there are places for check boxes, there's places for different kinds of drop-down lists, and there's even radio buttons and little buttons down at the very bottom. If you want a working example of the PDF, you can open this one up and be able to click on it and see exactly how this one is set up. Again, this is just an example. You can always change this up to match whatever design style that you wish, or you can copy the one that I have. In addition to this, I'm also giving you a logo that can be used in whatever design that you have. Now, in the second part of this, we're going to be creating a variety of different social media ads. For these advertisements, I'm giving you some pictures you can use, as well as some illustrations that would be appropriate to use wherever you want. To get started, let's jump into InDesign and create a new document. The size of your document needs to be 8.5 inches wide and 11 inches tall. Since we're only working on one page, we won't really worry about facing pages. As far as the margins go, you can adjust this however you want, but I'm just going to keep it at the default 1/2 inch on all the sides. Additionally, if you want to set up bleed, you can set that up as well. But for me, I'm going to keep it with no bleed. We'll say create. This will give us our blank document to begin with. Now, to make things go a little bit easier, I'm going to open up my layers panel, and on layer 1, I'm going to double click and make this my template layer. Inside of this layer, I'll go up to File and down to Place and locate the JPEG Dr. example that I gave to you. Since I'm going to be copying this layout, I'm going to have it on its own individual layer. So when we say Open, I can click on the top corner and you can see it's the exact same size and proportions as my 8.5 by 11 page. To make it a little bit easier to see, with it still selected, go up to your opacity and drop it down just a bit so that it doesn't take up so much visual space. That looks good. In my layers panel, I'm going to lock down my template and create a new layer. Now, it's a good habit to start creating all of your design on one layer, and then later on another layer, we're going to have our interactive elements. So for layer 2, I'm going to call this my design layer. Let's take our time and build this one thing at a time. Obviously, I can place the logo in here, so let's go to File and Place. Find the logo from the interactive form, which is saved as an EPS, and we'll simply click and drag and roughly place it where it needs to be. Again, yours can be slightly different. It doesn't have to be 100% pixel perfect. The next thing I would do is to create each of the sections for the patient information and filling in the information for this one. We can do this by starting off with the little headlines. So I'm going to create a text box, type in patient information. We can go up to our styling and make this all caps. We can center it up. And we can also center it inside of our text box by going to Object, Text Frame Options. Make sure your vertical justification is set to center. There it is. And then we can make it whatever size we need it to be from here. And if I need to change the coloring of it, I can go up to the top and let's make it filled in with black and change the text color to be paper. Finally, if I've got a bolder version of this, let's just make it regular bold. That looks really good. Since I've got one designed, all I've got to do is to make a duplication of it by clicking Option and dragging. Let's do fill in for wife/husband. And then again, hold the Option key as we click and drag, and then fill in if patient is a minor. And for this one, maybe I'll make it a little bit smaller to look good for there. Finally, we can drag these down into place and place them right where they need to be. For the rest of this information, let's pull the stuff that we have from our text box. Go into the folder, open up the form info, and this is the information that we need for the patient information. So all I'm going to do is to highlight this part and copy it, Command-C, can jump into here. Let's make a text box to fill in this area. And then Command-V to paste it. Now here's how I formatted everything for the original example. When I selected my text, we'll make it relatively small, and I'm going to do small caps. This way it keeps everything upper and lowercase, but also makes it different enough to be able to see it. You can increase your leading to space everything out till it matches nicely. And again, the amount of leading doesn't have to be perfect, but you can get it to line up as best as possible for your design. Then, in order to make the lines above each individual line, with everything selected, we can open up our paragraph rules. Let's go up to Window, down to Type and Tables, and open your Paragraph panel. From here, you can choose the paragraph options and open Paragraph Rules. If you remember from a previous section, this allows you to draw a line above whatever area that you have. So in this case, choose Rule Above, and we'll turn it on. We can then change the point weight to be maybe a little bit smaller than 1, so maybe half of a point. And we can offset it by increasing it till it's above the line. There it is set for here. We'll keep the width going to the column so it goes all the way to the end, and then we'll say OK to this. Let's move this out of the way. Finally, we just need to align this with our text that's down below. So I'm going to bring it down to here until each of the letters line up on top of this. Finally, we can use our tabs to tab over until the words get right about where they need to be. You can set official tabs, or if you're in a pinch, you can just hit the space bar and you can space it over until it gets right where it needs to be. Repeat the same process for, let's do it for state. So now state is aligned, and then zip, and then email. Again, either press the space bar or you can set tabs. And then finally, let's do it down here for city, state, and zip as well too. There's state, and then finally for zip. Again, yours don't have to line up perfectly, and you can redesign this however you wish. But just make sure there's plenty of room that you can leave to have a text box to fill in for each one of these once we're ready. Repeat the same process for filling in the information for your wife and husband, as well as the patient is a minor section. With this part done, let's also add the I accept responsibility for all charges. Down here at the very bottom, all you have to do is highlight the text and copy it. Let's place it inside of its own text box. We'll make it nice and large, and also, in this case, bold. Now, I'm not going to put an actual checkbox there. Instead, I'm going to do that once I set up the final interactive elements that need to be part of the final design. All I'm focusing on now is just the text so that it fits nicely where it needs to go. In the next section, let's do the please check all answers to the questions below. In this case, since I have a yes and a no checkbox, I'm going to simplify this by just having one single checkbox. With it checked on, it indicates yes, unchecked would indicate no. So all I'm going to put are just the allergies or any of the questions that they're asking for you. So to create this part, again, let's make a text box, place it here, jump back into our text, and I'm going to copy over all this information. Command-C,
paste it in here. We'll make it large enough to be able to see and read on every line. I'm going to turn off my template for now so I can see everything. And then finally, I'm simply going to give some space between the number and the question that's asked. Since I want this to be nice and consistent, I'll even highlight all of these spaces and copy them, Command-C. Then all I have to do is paste it to make sure everything is still nicely aligned between all of these. So highlight each and paste. With this done, now let's also highlight the question. Please check answer to all of the questions below. Copy that. We'll turn back on our template and let's make it fit in this area. Paste it and let's make it bold. And there we have this section done. For the section that's down here, let's do the please explain yes portion. I'm going to copy out this question and drag it down here. Since it's already formatted, all I have to do is to copy this and paste it into here. This section is going to have a large open area where we can type out essentially a paragraph of text. This portion here is going to give us a combo box or a drop-down list to choose from. So let's give it reason for visit, and a colon. We'll let that sit right here, and I'm going to bring the text box in just a bit. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, and later on when we add the interactive elements, we're going to add the box to this particular portion. For this portion down here, let's copy this and do a when was the last time you saw a doctor. Need to make my text box a bit bigger so I can actually see what I typed out. There we go. And I can misspell doctor, D-O-C-T-O-R, question mark. Placing that where it needs to be. These are going to be radio buttons that we're going to choose between the month range. In this case, we can either type out the ranges or you can copy and paste them from here. You can see when I gave them to you, they already include the buttons, but we can also paste them individually inside of their own text box to make it a little bit easier to do. I'm going to do that by making a text box. Again, maybe I'll make it larger to see it. Let's get rid of the unnecessary little radio button that's been typed out. We can format these and we'll make them slightly smaller, and maybe for mine, let's make them italicized or italicized bold. Nope, we'll set it back to be just regular text. That looks good. With this done, let's put each one in their side of their own text box just to make it easier to move everything around and keep it nice and aligned. Again, your text does not have to perfectly line up with all of the text that's underneath for the template. That's just there for the sake of you knowing where to place things in case you wanted to follow my example. 6 to 9 months. And then finally 9 to 12. Working 9 to 12 months. And then finally let's do over a year being inside of its own text box. Since we didn't type out any of the little buttons on here, we're going to add those buttons when we add the interactive elements. We'll do the same for how you wish to pay. So down for this one, how will you be paying for this visit? Place that inside of this area, and then we can do a text box for each one of these. Cash, credit, debit, card. Make sure it's large enough to fit in that area. And then other. Again, if you need to, you can increase your leading. And then either a personal check or insurance. And We'll do the radio buttons for those. The last section to complete will be who will be insurance. And let's lowercase the I for that one. And this will give us a combo box down here at the bottom. The final elements that you'll create are a clear form and a print form button. Since those are interactive elements, we're going to do that for the interactive portion of this design. With all of this finished, we can turn off visibility for our template, and you can look at the overall layout of your design. Keep in mind, you can change up the colors, fonts, placement. As long as the same information is here, you can choose how you want to lay out yours, or you can copy the same style of layout that I have. Take some time and finalize your design now. In the next video, we'll talk about adding the interactive elements.